Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Rabbi shrah li sadri wa yassir li amri wahlul uqdatan min lisani liyafqahu qawli. Allama al-insana ma lam ya'lam rabbi zidni ilma. We, the Homo sapiens, or we call the human beings, live in a complex world, and we need to review, assess, and see the kind of world that we live in, and try to understand the complexity of this nature by defining our own functional existence on this earth. We need to see as to what is the purpose of our existence. We need to realize our mission, since we have been created in the best of forms, blessed with a superlative intelligence, a consciousness which is unique amongst the entire lot of creation that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has created. We need to assess rationally the need for our belief in the existence of a creator, because when we see that the complex world that we live in and the complex system that exists in our own bodies, in our physical bodies, would make us realize the fact that this special creation of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, which has been blessed so profusely, profoundly, has to have a creator. Without a creator, such an immaculate, mathematically perfect system could not exist, cannot exist. So the need for a person to realize the fact that he has been created makes him go into the details of his own creation. He tries to find as to why has he been created. And for that, he takes the assistance of the divine scriptures, the divine revelations that have been given to mankind ever since his existence on this earth. The need to have a final book of guidance becomes paramount when you see that over the centuries of development of the human self has resulted in corrupting the basic divine scriptures. Although the divine knowledge has remained the same, and that is why we always maintain that ever since the existence of this world, all beings were provided with a monotheistic system. The same deen that we have been given in Quran was given to Abraham, Hazrat Ibrahim alayhi salam, and all the distinct prophets who came from the very day of existence of the humans on this earth. Having said that, we resolve the fact that this system of belief, monotheistic belief in a divine entity, is an absolute rational requirement. There cannot be so many gods, there has to be only one God, which your rational mind would, when it analyzes the entire proposition, comes to the conclusion, yes, there is a need. The only possibility is for one God to exist. Because if there were several gods, there will be a chaos in this world, because each of them will be exercising its own authority. So the need becomes a belief in an entity which is divine, which is all powering, almighty, which is omnipresent, which is an absolute perfection in every sense of the word. Because when you see the world itself, the space, the cosmological content of this world, then we come to the conclusion, yes, as the Einstein said that if he was asked about the concept of God, he would say that he is a superclass mathematician, because everything that has been created in this world, in the entire cosmos, is so perfect in every way that the slightest deviation from what has been created would result in a chaos. Any deviation to the extent of a infinite change in the matrix of the cosmological configuration. So it becomes very easy for us to understand that when we see the nature in itself and the creation at large, it becomes easy for us to understand that there has to be a creator whose divine powers are beyond our comprehension. We can only comprehend to the extent that has been defined or given to us in the form of his qualities and attributes in the Quran itself. What he has himself defined. So that is the creator and we are the creation. As a creation, we are the best of the creation, as has been said in the Quran, the best of forms. In all ways, we are the best creation that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has created, and therefore Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has blessed us with the function or the responsibility of being His own vicegerent on this earth. When the Lord created us, He provided us with an objective to achieve or a mission to achieve in this life. When he sent us to this earth, He sent us for a defined period, for a specified period, from A to Z, which forms your life in itself on earth. When we see that we have a very limited time at our disposal, and we see that the object which has been outlined for us to worship Him in all forms, then we find our mission. And for anyone to succeed in a mission, you have to know what the exact mission has been given to us, and given to us by the divine power who is our creator. So that mission is مَا خَلَقْتَ الْجِنَّ وَالْإِنسَ إِلَّا لِيَعْبُدُونَ. That we have not created the jinns and the humans for any other purpose but to worship Him. That is the exact translation if you make an interpretation of that. And that worship is a very comprehensive, detailed, duty that has been assigned in all forms, in a manner that you attain success, sterling success in this world and the world hereafter, and the dimension hereafter. If you see the functionalities of this responsibility, then we find that there are functions that one is duty bound to perform for the Creator Himself, and then there are functions that one has to perform for the relationships that he forms in this world to form a society. He is an individual, but as an individual he has been given various functions so that he can form a tangible society, which ensures in his own individuality, if he follows the moral command, if he follows the divine command which have been given in the Quran, then it becomes very easy for him to see that an integrated personality emerges when he performs all those commands, in compliance of those commands, when he performs in his life in a manner that he uh, unfolds the duties that have been assigned to him by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the Quran and Sunnah. And then when he tries to follow the path which has been ordained for him, then in essential measure he is following a path which ensures an absolute success in this world and in the hereafter. And the path entails, or can be divided into two areas. One is his duty towards Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and the other is his duty as an individual in the society in which he lives. And when we read the Quran, we find a very clear direction towards the spirituality or the spiritual aspect of human personality, which is the root and the different areas that emerge from there. Dr. Ansari in his book describes them that the personality has its roots in spiritualism, and the trunk of the tree, if you see it, if you try to visualize it as a tree of life, then the trunk is the moral system that is being provided in the Quran, and the branches are the various branches of knowledge which emerge from the moral base that has been given to him in the Quran. Okay? So when we try to talk about Tassawuf is not a kind of a weird thing that it has been made of in the recent times. Tassawuf was there from the very inception of Deen itself, because Tassawuf was being exercised by the Holy Prophet and his companions themselves. So it is not something which is a new phenomenon, because the debate that we find in the current times is that it was not present during the times of the companions of the Holy Prophet. That is not a fact. Tasawwur is something which emerges from your deeper study of Quran itself. Yeah? So we are trying to discover the areas of wisdom that are hidden in the Quranic script, which need to be contemplated on in order to find a greater rate of success in the type of worship that he does as a vicegerent of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And then he has been blessed with the function as a vicegerent. He's a distinctive function and a distinctive personality that has been given to him. So we try to see as to the direction which is being given to us in the Quran itself, and that in that area, if you try to contemplate on, you find that the entire trend of spiritual guidance that is provided in the Quran, that you see that man has to follow or emulate the pattern of life that has been observed in the Holy Prophet ﷺ. That is the ideal pattern, the iconic pattern that we have to follow or emulate, which then we call it part of Sharia or Sunnah. So we have also talked about the historical perspective. If you see in the slide, the second para, the evidence indicates that from the very inception of Islamic civilization, there were people who zealously devoted their lives to attain the cherished level of piety through rigorous ibadah and moral excellence attained through pursuance of ihsan and emulation of the sunnah of the Holy Prophet in compliance of the Sharia. Brotherhood of Safa is an example who practiced Islam in its purest form. Sorry. Because if you find the distinction amongst all the creations, the freedom of choice or the freedom of will has only been provided to these two creations. The rest of the creations, like the animals or the plants or the other objects of life, although they are all animate objects, because from the scientific point of view, if we review life now, we cannot say that anything that exists in the form of matter can be said to be inanimate without life. Every life or everything that has been created by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has within it a consciousness which makes, and movement also therein, which makes it living. It does not make it an absolute inanimate object. So the concept of an inanimate being has been driven off. Now we know, and we scientifically know, that every object that has been created in this world, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has provided it consciousness. The consciousness that has been given to the human beings and the genies is distinct from all other creations. And these two creations have been given the freedom of choice. They have been provided with a platform of existence, and there they play their own parts, but they have their individual will. If he wants to perform a certain act, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will not obstruct it. You see, because he has been given this will, and that is the base for his being judged in the afterlife. You see, the basis of judgment would be his discretion to do a certain act in a certain manner with a certain intention. And that will be the base of the judgment of his act itself. You know, the other beings which are performing in this world, like animals and plants and etc., they do not have that freedom. They will only do as commanded by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, as the functions that have been assigned to it. That is the only part that they play. If you see the narration of the Quran about Iblis also, you see, so he has been distinct. There's a distinction that you find between him and the angels. The angels would never do anything which is beyond the command of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Okay? They will only conform to the command. But the genies had this freedom of choice. And therefore Iblis had the freedom of choice. And he opted for evil. He went against it. And so the creation which has been spelled out specifically are the humans and the genies by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala himself. And the reason is only the consciousness and the freedom of choice that the creation can exercise in this world. You know? He has been provided a platform. And everything has been described to him. He has been given enough guidance in the Quran about everything that exists. You know? He has been given all the guidance. And after that, when the deen has been, the entire deen has been given to us, akmaltu lakum deenakum. So after that, the responsibility is heightened on the human individual, particularly because he is the vicegerent. The genies are not the vicegerent. The humans are the vicegerents. So they have been given a distinctive role to play in this life. You know? And their role has to be to achieve perfection in their in the various activities that they perform in this world. By virtue of whatever has been given in the guidance, they are all classified as worship if they are performed with the intention of finding the pleasure of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. You know? That becomes very easy to understand if you see it this way. And we were talking about the, the, the special creation that is the humans. The human being, the distinction that has been given to human beings is found in the very verse, "Nafaktu fihi min ruhi," you know, that he blew the soul, he himself blew the soul in the human beings. So that gives it a very distinct character, a very distinct personality, which behoves him to be the vicegerent of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala on this earth. And therefore, his responsibility is far greater. The jinns do not come even close to the level of the stature Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has blessed the humans with. You know? So that having said that, we try to also resolve the fact that there's some objections that are constantly being raised against the Sufis in the past also, if you see from the historical perspective, that it was not so during the time of the Holy Prophet ﷺ or the companions of the Holy Prophet ﷺ. So we have to keep that also in mind, that this is not something which was a later manipulation by the people who came after. Excuse me. But this is something which the Quran itself gives a direction to. The Quran provides you a very clear, distinct direction in the form of the path of Falah. The path of Falah is what is being enacted, or when you connect the points in the Quran, then the system that emerges is the Sufi path. You know, the inner dimension of Islam, when we call it the mystical dimension of Islam or the spiritual dimension of Islam, when we define Tassawuf in these manners, we try to qualify it as the higher path which is adopted by people who try to find or who try to satisfy their inner instinct, the inner instinct of the soul itself. Because when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created the human beings, it was the ruh that was first created, and then it was conjoined with the body. So the yearning of the soul itself is to please Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, to find the pleasure of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. You know? And the body that has been joined with the soul, the yearning of the body is the satisfaction of the carnal desires. Huh? So there are two distinct areas if we try to see it, contemplate on this particular aspect of the human existence. The human beings who are trying to aspire to transform their souls, to transform their inner self in a manner that it conforms to all the directions that have been given in the Quran for being for getting closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and for finding a greater degree of perfection in his degree of obedience to the divine commands. है ना? तो उसको if you see that in this particular light, it's a very simple thing to understand that this is not something new. The companions, since they were in the presence of the Holy Prophet ﷺ, naturally were being blessed all the time with the awe-inspiring personality of the Holy Prophet himself. So his presence was more than enough to provide inspiration and to provide the degree of change that is required in an individual to tread on the path of spiritualism. You know? So, and even then, when they were trying to conform with the spirit and the essence of the divine commands, they were definitely following the same path, the path of the Tassawuf. है ना? तो वो जो the particular name that has been given, which describes it in greater uh, depth, is the tazkiyah, the purification of soul, which becomes necessary because when the body tries to attain the carnal pleasures, the satisfaction of carnal pleasures, then it deviates from the path, because that is not the ideal which has been given to the human beings. The ideal for the human being is to live this life in a balanced manner, keeping all functions into consideration, fulfilling the requirements of the body legally and morally. You see, because procreation is a requirement of the human species. Okay, so if they don't procreate, then they will die out. So for procreation, you need to have to experience the carnal self also. But that carnality is within the bounds which has been provided in the Quran for the vicegerent of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. You know? So that part has to be very clear in the mind of the people, because those are not things that have been completely taken out of your life. You need not become a monk to be a good Muslim. You see, uh, whatever has been given by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, whatever has been given for the human beings to use, for their usage here in this world. But the mission has to be very clear in his mind. He has to achieve a certain mission, he has to achieve a certain direction, go in that direction, and find his place. Keeping in view the value of time that he has been given, a limited time. He has been given, there are certain limitations which are because of his physical self also. He can only perform to a certain extent. He has only been given 24 hours. Okay, not an unlimited time. Day is divided, and the time of his departure is not known. So he has to perform as keeping in mind the hadith of the Holy Prophet ﷺ, that he should be able to perform in his life, the functions of as a human being, considering the fact that he might pop off in the next second, the second moment of life, and, or he might, and he has to strive in this life in a manner as if he is to live forever in this world. So that is the beauty of the deen that has been given to us. The beauty is in the hikmah, the wisdom, and the wisdom has to be nurtured, harnessed through an effort. Every human person who has been blessed with intellect has to harness his intellect, has to harness his knowledge. Okay, unless he does that, he will not be able to see through the wisdom of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the creation of this world, in the creation of the human self. You know? So in order for him to appreciate all those things, he has to use his wisdom, which is of a superlative degree. If you see that people are now in an age where they are creating clones, where they are creating, where they are keeping the human organs refrigerated, frozen in special equipments, and using them in future to create the same organs which have become useless in the body of the person. We are living in a world, digitalized world, where everything is now possible. You are sending to the moon. You see, the Indians have gone to the moon now also. Huh? We live in a stone age, of course. The Pakistanis, we are far behind. Although we call ourselves a nuclear power, we call ourselves the holders of the atomic range of weapons, but we still are extremely depleted in our intellectual capacity because we are not utilizing that capacity which has been blessed to us. If you see in the past, when the Muslims had gained the supremacy in the world and they were ruling the world, they were considered at that time and also now when we review the different civilizations that have come from the day of existence, several civilizations, we find that the Muslim civilization, the Islamic empire, was the most civilized, most cultured, most advanced at that particular time, keeping view the period in which they were existing. And they were very creative. They were the best. They were the best mathematicians. They were the best geographers, navigationists. They were the best oceanographers. They were the best mechanics. Huh? If you try to trace the history, even this the aviation part, the Muslims were the pioneers in it. And in every walk of life, if you see the history, the past history, you will be able to see and witness the evidence itself that Muslims did a wonderful job till the time that they were adhering to the commands of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to pay the required attention to acquiring knowledge. We lost the touch because, and we became ignorant because the need for our advancement in knowledge was lost. Our own appreciation of the need itself was muddled, confused. We became a confused. We came across in a period of time like these, we are in a confused state. We do not know as to what direction we should be taking. And that is because of the fact that we have lost our interest in the divine scripture. We are not paying the attention that is required, and that is a must for every Muslim to see what has been given to us in Quran itself. And we have a pattern, a beautiful pattern, an absolutely perfect pattern in the life of the Holy Prophet ﷺ to follow. So when we lack that basic instinct, that basic desire to find the functionality of our role in this world, then how can we progress and how can we compete with the other world, the other civilization, the other sort of cultures that exist in this world? You see, if you see the pattern of guidance that has been given to us in the form of even the ritual worship like namaz, the prayers in itself, is a very powerful technique provided to each and every Muslim and made mandatory. If you see the wisdom that has been provided to us by the Holy Prophet ﷺ, that while you're praying, you should try to find the state of being when you are worshipping Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in a state of mind that this would be your last prayer. If that be it, what kind of conscious attention you would be paying to find the experience of the presence itself, divine presence itself in your namaz. So the path has been made easy for every Muslim. But then those who are trying to utilize their intellect in the manner that they should be doing it, critically, analytically, trying to understand the various steps that have been given to us to analyze a particular problem, then we can find the path in an easy way. And every common person, every human individual with a common intellect would be able to find the base itself. The base is the consciousness, the God consciousness within that person himself. When he's praying, that he has to keep in mind that he is seeing Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, or at least he is being seen by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The kafiyat of ihsan that is being described to us by Holy Prophet ﷺ. So there are the various things that have been given, like even for the Hajj itself, the state of mind that you should be in, a common man should be in, that he is gone there and he is in the house of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, Kaaba Sharif, and there is circumambulations that he is performing there 7 times across the Kaaba, around the Kaaba. That has a special significance. Each step that are being given to us or being taught to us by the Holy Prophet ﷺ, if you review each step, in each step there is a wisdom, but the essence has to be understood. If we know that the essence of namaz is to communicate with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, then it is a different form. If it is only a ritual that has to be performed in terms of how many times you do sajda, how many times you go into ruku, how you sit, and then you say your salam, and that's about all. If you're limiting it only to that extent, then the benefit that should accrue to you, the spiritual benefit that should accrue to each one of us while praying, is lost. Because that is not the way in which it was devised. It was given to us in the night of Miraj, when the event took place, when our Holy Prophet ﷺ was in the presence of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and he was given the highest possible award of his seeing Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in person. You see? So, I mean, that is the kind of experience that you need to find in namaz. When Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in the Quran, Alam tala ila rabbika, so that gives you the direction. You have to try to experience the presence, the divine presence in namaz itself. If that happens, तो कहते हैं ना कि एक सिजदा भी अगर सही हो गया तो आपकी नमाज कबूल हो जाती है। एक लम्हा आपका सही कंसंट्रेशन के साथ अल्लाह की तरफ हो गया, आपका सारा जो जहन है वो सिमट के उस तरफ चला गया, आपकी कॉन्शियसनेस उस तरफ चली गई, so you are able to access the experience of divine presence. And that very divine experience has been detailed by Dr. Ansari in his book in the very opening paragraphs of his writing on the religious quest. And so the quest itself, the desire, the yearning to find Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that is most vital. That is the most significant part of your namaz. You know? If that does happen to you, then you are achieving your objective. And if that does not happen to the person, then he is only performing a ritual, which is mandatory in all its aspects. He has to perform it because it's part of the duty that has been given 5 times a day. But if he is made to understand by people of your caliber who are ulama, if they teach this thing in particular to every namazi, that his objective should be to find the presence of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, to seek the presence, to seek that experience. If you are able to convince him and guide him onto that path, that all those common people will be able to derive the benefit that is hidden in the namaz itself, which is intense. This is the only duty that has no excuse in it. I mean, even if you are on the deathbed and you do not have the capacity to stand and perform the namaz, you can do it by only motions, simple motions. Okay? So, I mean, the importance of namaz itself, or the various functions, other functions, like if you are giving a zakat, if you have this concept that this is, you purified your own assets or whatever you have, and you're doing in compliance of a command from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, of an amana which has been given to you of 2.5%, as has been detailed by the Holy Prophet ﷺ. The amana that you have been given for the others to be provided through you, if you sense that sense of responsibility is being created in you for finding the pleasure of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala by parting the money that has been provided to you, or the asset that has been provided to you, a portion of that under divine command to the other brothers of the clan. You see, to those needy people who deserve to be given that money or zakat. So, I mean, every ibadah that has been given for a common person, if he performs after proper contemplation of the command itself, trying to find the essence of that particular ritual that has been provided, that will empower him, that will give him the base to establish his connection with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But the path of people who are following the path of Sufis or the mystic path has a concentrated effort, which is to find Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's pleasure and to progress with a faster speed in order to find perfection in his actions in conformity with the commands of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And if you if you see it in slightly greater depth, then the ibadah that you performs only provides you a platform of moral excellence. The better Muslim that you are, the more God conscious that a person is, the greater are his chances of finding excellence in his ibadah and his morality, because both are interconnected. A pious person will always be highly moral, because morality is linked here in Islam with your obedience to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. You're performing all functions in accordance with what has been defined for you as a duty. But that duty is being performed with with sincerity, with greater sincerity. The more moral a person is, the more God conscious a person is, the greater is his degree of sincerity towards the job that he's trying to do. You know? Because he knows that whatever he is doing is in the eyes of God. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows, Aleem Basir. So he has knowledge of everything that one does or one thinks. Even the thoughts are in the knowledge of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala of a person. So the kafiyat ihsan and emulation of the sunnah of the Holy Prophet in compliance of Sharia. So the moral excellence attained through pursuance of ihsan. Now ihsan is God consciousness and emulation of the sunnah of the Holy Prophet, because the Holy Prophet ﷺ has given us a model, a perfect model which ensures an absolute success as a spiritual being, as a human being. You know? Now the next slide that we have, this I have already explained that the people who were close to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's beloved Prophet ﷺ, in the early generation of Islam, through the closeness to the time of the noble Prophet ﷺ and the illumination of his incomparable, stupendous, awesome spirituality, encompassed so completely the inner and outer aspects of the companions' personalities. Inner and outer aspects of the companions' personalities, that the comprehension of the inwardness of Islam, the comprehension of the inwardness of Islam enwrapped in its outward expression, तो जो उनकी जिंदगी ज़ाहिरी जिंदगी थी और बातनी जिंदगी दोनों, the esoteric and the exoteric was clearly visible, and that every individual or group who devoted themselves especially to this aspect of faith were totally entrenched, thus portraying ethico-religious excellence. उनमें तो automatically आ गई ना वो, because they were in the presence of the Holy Prophet and they were following the Sunnah, and they were so much in love with him, so much devoted to him, that there was a instance of one of the companions who would be sitting in one of the corners of the Masjid al-Nabi, and constantly sitting there. He would not move from there. And whenever he was being asked to move, he would say that, please let me stay here, because I just want to stay at a distance and just look at the Holy Prophet. Look at the love, yeah, and the devotion of that person. So that was the kind of thing that was in the people who were called his companions. Entrenched, thus portraying ethico-religious excellence. So that was an automatic thing. As a consequence, they were finding excellence there. And their level of piety, implying God consciousness, was optically discernible in their social behavior and attitudes. जिसे हम तकवा कहते हैं, तकवे की कैफियत कि वो उनकी हर कैफियत में वो मुतरशा था, उनकी मोहब्बत. टाइम खत्म हो गया है. Oh, I'm so sorry. We will continue it in the same span later on. I think we spent, was it 1 hour? Huh? Okay, thank you.